Hello friend, welcome back to Diesel Mercedes YouTube channel. I'm sure all of you clearly recognize 1987 Mercedes-Benz 300D turbo diesel, which you saw in many videos in the past. And most of these videos were basically maintenance, but today it's different. It came with the problem. The owner says that he can smell some burning from the rear wheels, and he thinks that the parking brake might be getting stuck or something like that. And so let's go together in this video to see if I am able to fix this condition. I will start with checking the action of that parking brake, which is here, right? That seems to be working correctly. How it's releasing. The pedal jumped nicely up, but obviously that doesn't mean anything. It seems to be working correctly, but the socket size, it's number 17, right? And sure, they are nicely coming out because there is a very tiny small amount of anti-seize, so it's perfectly working. Now, before I removed the wheels, I tried to turn them and they were moving easily, but if there is any drag, I will feel it on this rotor slash drum itself. This one definitely have some resistance, and just looking around, checking everything, the brake pads, both of them, they seems to be somewhere around 6 to 7 millimeters, so they are almost new. There doesn't seem to be any problem, so I will be removing this caliper, removing the rotor, and we will see the parking brake assembly. The caliper is being held with two 17mm bolts. After you remove the bolts, the caliper easily slides off, right? I can see those pads are almost brand new in the thickness. The pistons, I will have to recheck if they are working correctly. And remember, never hang it on the line, right? You always use the designated hanger for it. To remove this rotor, you just don't slide it off. You need the hex number 5. Just make sure the tool is perfectly seated and you don't strip that bolt, because if there was some rust, that might give you a real problems. And that should be the last thing which was holding that rotor slash drum right on, and I should be able to remove it unless it's rusted here together and it doesn't want to go. You can see this might need some hammering, and that's another place where you should put the anti-seize, which I will show later. Right, because now the rust is holding it together. It doesn't want to give. For those of you who love the numbers, I can see this is original Mercedes-Benz part. It has those logos, and it says what is the minimal thickness of this rotor. It's a 7.3 millimeters. After a little bit of banging, it should give, and I should be able to remove this rotor, which is in the same time basically the drum for that parking brake assembly, right? You see that clean area? That's where the brake shoes are basically braking. And we need to inspect this whole thing and find out if there is some problem. That's a lot of brake dust coming out of it, so it's always good to use the brake cleaner, right? I have a catching pan here, and clean it thoroughly before any inspections or any work will be done on it. And so far what I'm finding that everything looks excellent, and again almost like new. Right after I cleaned it, I can see the brake shoes are 4mm. I can clearly read on it, right, the print when it was new. All the springs are in the place, so that's very interesting. It was also easy to remove this caliper. The brake pads have the same thickness, right? So I can see there was no problem with this part, and again I will hang it on the hanger, and now I can see this is easily moving, right? There is no drag inside, but I will remove it anyway. And after, again, careful banging, certain amount of careful banging, this rotor slash drum, it's also removed. And I think I already see which side is being problematic. But let me first use the brake clean this area and inspect all the parts. And after using the brake cleaner again, right, everything is clean. You can see with me all those leathering, right? Those shoes seems to be almost brand new, right? Barely used. And here we go, both discs, and inside of those drums, right? Driver side, passenger side. Now look inside where the shoes are meeting, the drum basically. Do you see that blue coloring, like a rainbow, dark blue color? Not sure if the camera is showing it. It's not on this one. This one has way less wear that I can see on this one. And that will tell me that there was some high temperatures involved inside of this drum. And it means that if there was any smoke produced, it was coming here from that driver's side. What it means for me is that I will do some very fine adjustment on that driver's side, on those brake shoes. I will let them go one click less tight or one click more inside, right? So there is no chance that they will be rubbing this drum. Also, I have to inspect those cables which are coming from the cabin, from the parking brake, because one of them might be rusted inside or something, right, not working properly, and that cable will be holding actually those shoes in the brake position. So now the car needs to go higher, and I will go looking over there. And hopefully you can see a little bit that area where the cable from the cabin actually splits and becomes two cables running towards to the parking brakes, right? Those brake shoes in the back. So also it can be sticky there, right? There are many spots where the problem could be. I lowered the Mercedes a little bit so I can reach in the cabin and put that parking brake on. Let's observe what will happen when I push it. And as I said, we are looking on the driver's side. That's where we're starting. Look, both these nicely spread, right? It take off. Now let's see what will happen when I will release it. Will it go all the way to the stop? Yeah, and nicely goes and collapses all the way to minimum. So now you are looking on the passenger side. Now let's do the same. That wasn't enough. This is in and release. In and release. So that was moving, not in the same range like the other one on the other side, but moving definitely to the extent of braking. Now what is the problem here also is, listen. Do you hear that dragging? The whole this assembly needs to be nicely floating on that backing plate. That means there needs to be high temperature grease on these spots. 1, 2, and 3. Obviously on the other side here, in order to be nicely floating inside of that drum. And I need to apply it right now. Maybe you can see that amount of rust, which is right here, right there, and right here. That's because there's absolutely no grease. So I'm using this brake caliper synthetic grease, right? This is resistant to the high temperatures which are inside of the brake components, and I need nicely applied down here. And obviously I have 2 brake shoes right on this entire system, so I'm doing exactly same thing on the other side, on the bottom one. And when I grab it, right, and I feel that floating, I wish you can feel the difference, how easy it moves right now, right? And that will be moving freely inside of the drum, and it cannot cause any high temperatures, right, as a result of dragging. So am I ready to install that brake rotor back? Well, if I want to have the same problems removing it later again, I could, but I won't. I will show you what I will do before putting it back. I will first clean all this terrible rust, right, which is here. Right, it just takes a little bit of work, but that is what makes the difference. Let's go and do the same on that rotor. Obviously, if you want to have a perfect fit, right, you have to do same on this surface too. Look at it, almost like new. Now I'm definitely ready to put it back using some anti-seize. This is aluminum base anti-seize, and you know, not to have the same problem banging that thing for a while because it was rusted together basically, right? All you have to do in this area where it was touching each other, apply thin layer of that. Here we go. So I can bring this rotor. The Mercedes doesn't give you any choices. There is the pin and there is a bolt. So you put it on here in the double pin, let's say, right? I'm checking when I push it all the way. I'm checking that it's freely moving, and this will be time to adjust it, those brake shoes, to be more tight if needed. But I believe this side was good, and I will proceed with installing this screw, right? That was that hex. Same thing, I will put anti-seize on that thread before putting it in. You can see detail where that anti-seize is, right? It's right there on that edge, it's squeezed in there, and I'm rechecking, right, how easy it is to move this one. But this one was better than the other side, it was more tight over there. So I'm good here. I believe it didn't need adjustment, and I can move on the other side. You remember what we said, that adjusting wheel needs to be moved, right? If I move it this way, I'm making the whole assembly bigger. That means more tight. If I move it the other way, I will be making it smaller. You remember I needed it smaller, but I already did it meanwhile. So I moved it like 3 clicks down, and we will see how it will work. But first I need to loop behind those shoes, right, with that high temperature grease. Of course, I don't want to forget that thin layer of that anti-seize, right, to stop that rust from recreating again. Alright, that's enough. I can put nicely clean rotor on it, right, matching this double pin right here. And because I backed it off, right, that adjusting screw, this rotor is finally running easily. If I think it's too loose, I can go back and very slowly start clicking that adjustment screw, right, towards to me this time, spreading those shoes and making them more tight with this rotor. It felt, the amount of clicks felt okay. I heard the whole thing moving, right? Of course the car is heavy, but that's definitely stuck. Let me check the other one, right? I will not move the camera. Let me see this side. Absolutely the same. It's fully locked. That means I will release it. And I want to see if it's dragging or not, right? Now it's important, because that was our problem. Look at this. Absolutely perfectly free. There's no way I will have any heat buildup, any burning, right? Both assemblies are finally properly lubricated, installed correctly, right? And it should be working right. But I'm still not done. And I didn't mean that, oh yeah, the calipers are hanging. What I mean, I will go ahead and lubricate with some heavy grease that entire assembly, which is unfortunately behind that drive shaft. It's hard to even film it for you there. It was frustrating for me to find the angle, right, to get there. So I will lubricate all these components to make absolutely sure that there's also not some dragging and all these parts are correctly pulling on those cables which are moving those parking brake assemblies. I hope you find this video helpful, and please make sure you are subscribed, because I will always have more videos coming your way on this channel. Thanks for watching and have a great day, my friend.